Welcome to VPG's Virtual Water Cooler Chat Podcast, a platform that features professionals across a variety of industries and promotes growth mindset principles with a central pillar of championing the achievements of women. Our conversations explore a wide spectrum of backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives, creating a vibrant mosaic that enriches our collective understanding and strengthens our commitment to growth and empowerment. Today, Sydney Ricks, a recent graduate of Virginia Tech and former data analyst, digital media strategist, and litigation assistant at VPG, is speaking with Kandis Gibson, an attorney in the Washington, D.C. office of Morgan, Lewis & Bockius. Kandis focuses her practice on Section 337 proceedings at the U.S. International Trade Commission, including representing clients in enforcement issues related to Section 337, exclusion orders before the United States Customs and Border Protection. A graduate of Cornell University and Howard University School of Law, she is an active Cornell University alumna and serves on the President's Council of Cornell Women. Let's get started.
Hi Kandis, thanks so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to get to meet you. I'm so excited that you've accepted this interview. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you, Sydney. I'm so excited to be here and to chat with you this afternoon.
A little bit before we get started, because I know this is our first time meeting, I am a recent graduate from Virginia Tech. I study statistics, and for VPG, I am a data analyst and also social media specialist. I've been working with Ashley for almost 2 years now, and again, I'm really excited for this opportunity to interview you today.
Well, I'm happy to talk to you.
Awesome. So Kandis, how did you get to be on the Water Cooler Chat podcast?
So this past fall, I spoke at the AIPLA's annual meeting, and I did deliver the keynote at the Women in IP breakfast. I've been in AIPLA for years, love the association, love Women in IP, such a fabulous group of women in an already amazing organization. And I think Breve used to talk to Ashley and said, hey, Kandis should be on the podcast. And so here I am, and just my little spin on that. I think that's the power of women in networking and how supportive women telling other people about other women that they've met and kind of putting us out there and spotlighting us. So thank you to Bree and thank you to Ashley for having me on the podcast. I'm happy to be here.
I'm trying to be better at networking. I'm using LinkedIn and everything like that. So.
It's a part-time job for those of us who have full-time jobs, but it's a full-time job for somebody. I mean, I think that you start meeting people that they know, and you look up and it's just like you have this great village of people to tap into and resources to tap into. So I love how that works.
Can you share 2 fun facts about yourself for us?
I'm going to call this a fun fact, even though they were getting on my nerves today. I have 2 big dogs, like 75 and 80 pounds, Roscoe and Rocky. I love these dogs. They're one of my best parts of my day, and constantly wanting to talk to my manager to complain about the frequency and length of walks and the frequency of snacks. But that's one of my fun facts because they're a big part of my life. My other fun fact, this is fun for me, is I am an endurance athlete. And so I do long course triathlons, like Ironman distance triathlons. I do marathon swimming, so like swims over 6 miles, long course bike rides, like 100+ miles, which I find there are a lot of like lawyers, type A personality people there just because it's very regimented, their structure and training plans. But when you sit a lot for your job, like I do, it's nice to have a hobby that is the exact opposite. So it gets me outside, it gets me moving, and I've been doing it for several years now and love it.
Well, I would say that's fun.
I think so.
Super impressive.
It's painful at times, but I have a lot of fun doing it, and I've been doing it for, I guess, a little over 10 years now, so I like it.
Thank you. What inspired you to focus your legal career on Section 337 proceedings at the United States International Trade Commission?
So many people don't like the ITC, and I think that's because litigation happens so quickly. I just wrapped up a trial a few weeks ago, and it was, I think, 6.5 months from institution to the hearing, which is, even for ITC standards, that's pretty quick. It's all of district court litigation condensed down into this very short time period. But I wanted to be a trial litigator. I wanted to go to court. I wanted to question witnesses. When I decided I wanted to be a lawyer and go to law school, I wasn't sure what type of law I wanted to practice, but I knew I wanted to be in court. When I started practicing, the practice group in my firm that had the most litigation was the ITC group. And so I went and talked to the head of that group, a woman named Barbara Murphy, who I love dearly. And I said, I really want to be a trial attorney. I want to go to court. And she was like, well, come and do 337 with us. And so that's how that happened. And now 50 some ITC cases later and questioning witnesses and all of that stuff later. I've never been unhappy happy with that decision.
With your background in history and African studies, why did you decide that law and IP law was what you wanted to pursue?
I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. When I was 9, I was talking to my grandfather, my grandpa Franklin, and he pulled me aside, and I was arguing with my brother and my cousin. I thought I was getting in trouble, and he was like, hey, I think you should go to law school. He actually said, hey, I think you should go to Cornell and you should go to law school. And at 9, I don't know, it sounded like a good idea. You think of these moments that define your life. I was like, sure, let's do it. And so I went to Cornell and I became a lawyer. But even in law school, I knew I wanted to be a trial attorney. I knew I wanted to go to court, and I wasn't entirely sure the best path for me to get there. And again, it was just this opportunity arose to do 337 litigation, and I was like, I'm going to take advantage of it. So you look up and you have this plan, and it's figuring out when you should not pivot, because I didn't pivot from the plan, but like the little side streets to get you on a broader plan. And so I saw that side street and was like, I'm taking advantage of this. I'm going down this road, and here I am.
How has your role with the Women's Bar Association of the DC Bar influenced your perspective on women in leadership positions?
I think for many of us, our first experiences with women in leadership come from family. Our mothers, our sisters, aunts, grandmothers. We see women in these roles. They are organizing the home. They're managing kids and schedules and all of these things. I grew up in a house like that, in a family like that. And so I've always seen women having leadership roles. It's not a foreign concept to me. My community had community leaders and teachers. And so I've always seen women in leadership. After law school, I started practicing, and I have been incredibly fortunate over my career to have worked exclusively at firms that have female managing partners. I don't know how that happened. It wasn't intentional. I mean, I probably wasn't even thinking about managing partners when I started my practice, but it happened. And I spent the formative years of my career at a small law firm, 7 attorneys with a female managing partner, really just watching her be amazing in a field and in a practice area that's dominated by men. And I joined the WBA when I was a baby lawyer, when I was fresh out of law school, my first year of practice, at the request of a female counsel I was working with. And what that showed me was the expanse of leadership roles for women. Again, even when I started practicing, no real concept of a female managing partner, even though I don't know that I knew what she did, but I knew who she was. But joining the WBA, and you see women in-house, women at corporations, you see all of the ways that women can lead professionally, and then even within the organization, it's all women. So the board of directors, the co-chairs, all of these opportunities within the association for women to lead. And it was just kind of like, oh, there are ways to get this experience. There are ways that we can support one another within this organization, and there are ways that we can take these skills and take them outside of our organization to our jobs and our careers, and to figure out ways to be of better service. In that respect, it just opened my eyes to all of the opportunities that are kind of out there. It's funny, I was thinking about this on the drive over. I often say, if I could have chosen how my life would have gone, like if you had gone and talked to 18-year-old Kandis and said, hey, you can have anything that you want. Like you can have, anything happen in your life that you want to have happen. I don't think I would have known to have picked the things that happened. I just didn't even have the knowledge for that. And what I ended up with, I think, is so much better than what I could have picked at that time, because you don't know what you don't know, and you haven't been exposed to these things. And so the WBA just exposed me to leadership in a different way. So it didn't make me think oh, women can be leaders, because I knew that. But it was just wow, the ways that women can be leaders, it's so much broader than what I thought going into this profession. And now I know what's out there, and let me figure out how I want to pursue it.
Looking in that household, that's very important to have those kinds of role models. Mm-hmm. And representation is, again, just very powerful.
I'm a first-generation college grad, first lawyer in my family. And I think sometimes we forget there are women, they might not be lawyers, they might not have gone to college. I think about my grandmother, who has given me some of the best advice in my life that I think about all the time. This quote comes to mind, it's okay to live a life that others don't understand. And my grandma, I'm doing stuff here in DC that she has no concept of, right? And so she would just say, I want you to ride your bike because that makes you happy. Now, my grandparents were not going out on the weekends and biking 100 miles, ever at any point in their life. But she was like, I want you to do these things, and I don't understand what they are, but I want you to do them because they make you happy. And that's just such a powerful example of how to lead and how to be supportive of people, even when you don't understand what they're doing. So I think we should, to the extent possible, really celebrate those types of leaders as well.
It's great to think about that in hindsight, that it doesn't need to look like one thing. Leadership can take many different forms, ones that we might not realize. Thank you. What kind of skills do you believe are essential for women lawyers to become effective leaders in today's legal landscape, especially in the STEM field?
Women in leadership is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. When I was president of the Women's Bar Association, my theme was leading forward. And I wanted to look at just that. What are the skills that women in the legal profession need to be successful? And so from there, we looked at, a whole host of skills, and we selected some, like we couldn't cover them all, but we looked at business acumen. We looked at people management, change management, resilience, understanding the difference between leadership and management. So we took all of these skills and we said, how do we bring these to women in a meaningful way? So we created a series, and it was 2 parts. The first was practical skills. So let's bring in coaches, let's bring in therapists, let's bring in people in these fields and have them explain to us, what are these skills? So what is business acumen? Like, what is it? How do we get it? How do we use it? Why is it important? And then once we have an understanding of what the skill is, then let's talk to female lawyers in the field and understand how they use this skill in their everyday life. The DC Bar, for example, has a section that helps people start their own law firms. How do you run a law firm? How do you set this up in a way that makes sense? But we also talk to women in-house. Why do you need to know business acumen, and how do you use it in your profession? So you need to understand the market if you're in-house and you're at a company that's traded on the market. But if you're a lawyer at a law firm, you need to understand the business of your clients. And maybe now is not a good time to raise this issue, or maybe you really need to raise this issue now, or maybe you delay filing a complaint because there's a key trade show or there's a key vote happening, so you have to understand the business side of things so that you can better serve your customer, better serve your client, better serve the people in your office. So as we were going through those programs, it was just really like, wow, like we don't talk about these skills enough. Resilience. We're coming out of the pandemic. Even now, like everybody's got to go back to work, and how do we build resilience? And what does that even mean when you talk about resilience? Change management. How do we bring change to people in a way that they can digest? How do we navigate disappointment? If we say everybody's got to go back to the office, all right, fine. If you care about the people that you work with, if you want to make sure that they transition well, if you want to make sure that they adjust well, how do you roll something out in a way that's going to acknowledge the sense of loss? Like, I'm no longer home and in my leggings and with my dogs at my feet. Now I'm in the office. And how do we make that a little easier for people to stomach? These are the things that make people good leaders. Managers can just be like, do it, it's management, whatever. I mean, managers should be thinking about these things too, but leaders, how do we get the best out of the people that we're working with? And so I think that those are just a handful of skills: business acumen, change management, resilience, especially resilience. I messed up. How do I move on from this? And how do I fix this? And how do I show up at work the next day after I did something wrong? That's a skill we all need. Like, we're going to be wrong at certain times. So I think that those are important skills for us to have ourselves, and then important skills for us to learn how to present so that people can see them and make better choices. And as leaders, people have to know that you care.
My favorite thing, they have different visual depictions of, again, maybe what a leader would do compared to a manager. That's super important to factor that in and what it takes to be a leader. Business acumen and resiliency. Are there any skills that you didn't anticipate on learning, like that took you a little bit by surprise, maybe from your background or any other personal experiences that you found helpful or relevant to your career today?
So what I just mentioned, I think, are just broad stroke leadership skills. I mean, you still have to have the meat and potatoes of your craft, okay? And you have to know the things that make you good in that setting. So I always tell baby lawyers, I'm like, one of the best skills you can have is to be detail oriented. That's across practice groups, but is it a 5? Is it an S? It matters. Is it 5 million? Or is it 500 million? And like, these are just silly things that you don't think matters until you're reviewing 3 briefs at the end of the night and somebody didn't run spell check. And now you're annoyed, or they ran spell check, but they didn't read the brief. So there are sentences that don't make sense. And I'm not perfect. I forget stuff. I move quickly too. And I have to remind myself at this stage in my career, like go back and reread it and make sure that it makes sense and make sure that you finish that thought and put a period at the end of the sentence, like so basic stuff like that. Really being detail oriented that I think a lot of us, I'm going to lump myself into that, a lot of us mess up. And then communication, like this is just basic. I sent an email 2 days ago to some junior associates asking them to work on something, and one responded right away and the other one did not respond at all. And the next day I started sending a note saying, hey, are you ghosting me? And it was feeling personal. And right before I hit send, he emailed me. And I have to balance this out, and I think about this often. I don't think we need to be in an environment where someone emails and you have like 30 seconds to respond. I don't support that at all. But like, if I respond to you during normal business hours, I kind of want you to respond same day. I mean, if this was a client, it would be different. But for colleagues, if you have an out of office message, different. If you're going to take more than 5 hours to respond, then you need an out-of-office message. 15 hours later is a little long. I think, being timely in communications, this sounds basic, right? It sounds like, oh, like you're in a relationship with someone and you got to send a text, like, how are you doing? You have to check in. But I think that there's an aspect of that to work that we often overlook. And I can deal with just about anything as long as you're not waiting until the last minute to tell me about it. And that's junior associates, that's partners. And I'm thinking, okay, don't take on so much work and you're swamped. And then at the last minute, you're like, oh my goodness, I need someone to take this off of my plate. That's just as frustrating from a partner as it is from a junior associate that doesn't let you know where they stand on the project either.
My generation, we haven't always been known for being the best at communication and responsiveness. But that's also something as I continue to grow professionally that is very, very, very important.
Even sometimes with my paralegals, like I like just a note like, this email has been received. That's wonderful. Hey, here's this thing. Can you look into it? Received. Awesome. I know you're looking into it. I don't have to follow up and say, hey, did you get this? Yeah, it's just been received. I love a good received email. Your generation might do this. I might have done this when I was starting out, like, it's email. They hit send. It surely went out. Like, of course I got it. I'll respond when I have the information. No. Just let me know you got it. You're working on it.
Another thing I love now, there's in Outlook reactions to acknowledge different emails.
I haven't made it that far. Reactions?
Yeah, like, in emojis, like sending a text. So they have a little reaction button in the corner of an email. So if you were to receive an email, and let's say you didn't want to or didn't have time to respond,
you just send a sad face back.
You could send a sad face. You could send a thumbs up or something.
Okay. That's probably more appropriate than a sad face. I'm going to start responding to all of my assignments with sad faces, like, I'll do it, but this makes me sad.
If you could offer some advice to young women, also just like young people, young professionals entering the patent law scene, what would it be for those who are aspiring to get into leadership positions as well?
I think one of the biggest things for people aspiring to be in leadership positions is kind of like placing yourself in a position to be in a leadership position. And so one of the easiest ways for that is finding an association. What are the volunteer opportunities for you? For lawyers, there's bar associations. There's the mandatory bars. There are all these voluntary bar associations. They have committee chairs. They have speaking opportunities. And so I think it's just easy opportunity access. Bar associations are always looking for someone to speak on a topic. And then there are substantive associations for certain backgrounds in STEM, even the grad level. There's like, NSBE and SHPE and all of these organizations that, again, have opportunities to present, to lead a committee, to help chair something. And that's just low barrier to entry for the most part, especially local chapters. The low barrier to entry. Bar associations are always looking for people. Professional associations are always looking for people to join and do something. Easiest thing, join something. And once you join, do something while you're there. They will see you do these things. I mean, don't mess it up. So do it well. But once they see you've joined and you're interested and you're doing things, like the pathway from that to actually leading things and being chairs and co-chairs and all of that is pretty like that. The second thing I think that's really important is that you find leaders that you like, managers you like, people who have styles that you like, and you talk to them. And it doesn't have to be like a long, in-depth conversation, but just hey, you did this really well? Can you tell me how you developed this skill? Can you give me a piece of advice for dealing with in this type of situation? This is maybe not the greatest analogy, but I always say, like, people in relationships always look at their parents and they're like, oh my goodness, my parents, their goals, or my parents are the blueprint or whatever. No, they're not. Your parents are goals, but you have no idea what went into them getting, you showed up and then you started paying attention to their marriage when they had been married 40 years. You weren't thinking about what they were doing when they were your age or when they had been married for 5 minutes. So you need the blueprint. You need the blueprint. You need to understand, look, this year was really bad. This year was fabulous. We did some counseling in here. We talked to some people. We read some books. We did these things. And then now we're here and you guys get to see the end result of all of this. So when we look at leaders, we see the end result of all of this work and we have no idea how they got there. Did they take courses? Did they get some certificates? What books did they read? What books do they recommend? So things like that. So talk to the leaders that you like and see what they did to get where they are. And then for the leaders you don't like, take note of the things that they do. Yeah, and so it's just like, this person gives really bad instructions and then they get mad when I don't give them what they want. And so then, maybe you follow up when you start leading and say, hey, are my instructions clear? And if you have any questions, like, let me know. And then you check in midway. That's important. So find the things that you don't like and figure out how to avoid doing them. And then the things that you like and how do you amplify what they are in your life and your leadership journey.
Especially again for my generation, it's easy to see the package all put together and then to really not think so much about how, like you said, the blueprint. They were able to kind of like develop those skills or get that experience to get them to that point. So that's good to keep in mind.
And people are honest. Like, they'll be like, man, 10 years into my career was terrible. I think people are honest. And if you ask, and I like targeted questions, like, don't ask me, like, tell me about your life. I don't have time for that. But like, hey, is there a book that you recommend on leadership? Or is there a course that you recommend? Or is there, like, those are easy to digest pieces and it's going to start a conversation. They'll remember, oh, Sydney asked me about this book 6 months ago, and now she's following up saying, hey, I read this book and it was great. And then you can use that to segue into something else.
Can you leave us with 2 pieces of advice on collaboration and personal growth?
My big piece of advice is probably personal growth. You have to be a good steward of your career. We find ourselves, I've been guilty of this too, you're just trotting along and you've been doing something for 5 minutes or 5 years or 50 years and you just do it. And you're not thinking like, is this what I want to be doing? Am I getting the experience that I want to get? Am I getting the opportunities that I thought I would be getting? Am I growing in my career? I do this, so I said I wanted to be a trial attorney. And so I think all the time, like, well, am I getting the opportunities to question witnesses? Am I getting the opportunities to cross? What's my trial experience looking like? How am I growing there? How am I building my skill set? Nobody is going to ask you those questions. But these are things we should be thinking about ourselves, because we'll look up in 5 years and we're like, oh my goodness, I stayed at this place because they were amazing people. And now all the amazing people are gone and I'm working here and I'm not doing anything. Like, oh, how did this happen? Oh my goodness. Pearl clutch. So we have to be good stewards of our careers. We chose these careers for the most part. Sometimes you find yourself doing something you didn't choose. But even then, I got this great opportunity. Am I taking advantage of it? Am I getting the most out of it? I do something like this in my personal life, in my professional life. In my personal life, I call it, am I being a good steward of my blessings? All of the things that I've asked for, am I taking care of them? And so my best friend said to me one day, he said, going back 20 years, I didn't really think you were going to be my push it to the limit friend. And yet here we are. And I thought about it and I said, look, when I die, I want them to be like, she licked the crumbs off the plate of life. Okay. How did I get the most of it? Which is how you end up doing 10-mile swims, because you're like, I got to lick these crumbs off the plate of life. I don't want to look back and say, I wish I had done something when I had the opportunity to do it. And so again, being good stewards of our careers, being good stewards of our blessings, however you think of a blessing, and making sure that, are you doing the stuff that you want to do? And then my piece of advice for collaboration will be along the lines of the advice that I gave before. Are you communicating? It goes to personal growth too. We have these opportunities to work together. So let's say, take this conversation. Again, we all get busy and sometimes I fail to respond timely to emails or whatever, but someone sends you an email or someone sends you a LinkedIn message and says, hey, here's this opportunity, like, come be on my podcast. I mean, I look up 6 months from now or 2 years from now being like, oh, is she still doing these podcasts? Like, oh my goodness. So are you taking advantage of opportunities opportunities to meet people and opportunities to collaborate? Are you communicating your thoughts, your needs, your desires in those moments of collaboration to help make it better for you and more fruitful? And honestly, like sometimes people communicate and they're being wholly unreasonable and ridiculous. And sometimes in order to be a better collaborator, you need someone to say, hey, you're being wholly unreasonable and ridiculous. And so you should tone that down. Last night I was having a conversation with a friend. We were talking about junior partners, and we were talking about the transition from senior associate to junior partner, and this fear some people have of like, am I going to change? Am I going to become, someone different? Am I going to do things that I don't like that are done to me as a senior associate? And I said, I like to think that if you're self-aware and you are asking these questions now and you're open to communication and collaboration, one, you shouldn't do them. But two, if by chance you slip into the foolishness and you start doing stuff, you're open enough for someone to come and say, hey, you're being a little ridiculous right now. And you can receive it. Because one thing for people to tell you, but you have to be able to receive that information. Communication is key for collaboration and for personal growth.
Those are some powerful pieces of advice, because even if it's something that you don't realize at the time, to be able to receive it in something, again, as basic as communication goes a long way.
Yeah.
So you mentioned this attitude in life that you have on just, living life to the fullest so that you can get every opportunity and take advantage of them fully and not kind of wonder a what if. And I wanted to know, in your career, has there been a learning moment that you learned to apply that mindset that you have now from your career experience?
I mentioned being a good steward of your career, right? So that's the thing I think about, and living life to the fullest. I was at my last firm for a decade, and I love those people to the second. I saw them 2 nights ago, love them. They're some of my favorite colleagues ever. They were amazing for my career in terms of growth. I stayed at that firm too long. I sold myself short, and I just thought, there's nowhere for me to go. But I was just thinking, this is comfortable. I'm having these experiences. I'm doing these things. And then I left. But when I was leaving, one of the partners said to me, thank you for staying as long as you did. I'm sure you had other opportunities. And I hadn't appreciated that. And I think this is such a woman thing to do. And one of my mentors, when I was like, I've got to tell them I'm leaving, and oh my goodness, what are they going to say? And he was like, what does it matter? Are you going to stay because you're worried that they're going to say something? This is your career. Be a good steward of your career. But I think sometimes we sell ourselves short, and we're thinking, oh my goodness, what could I possibly do? And how could I possibly move? And we talk ourselves out of things because of doubt, because of fear, whatever. And for this partner to say, thank you for staying as long, I was just like, oh, I did have other opportunities. Headhunters did reach out. I had just forgotten all of that. And I know we've canceled Kanye for all the right reasons. You don't want to go as far as Kanye when he says my presence is a present. But I think we need to, especially as women in male-dominated spaces, in spaces where we're questioning whether we belong, sometimes we need to appreciate what we bring to the table, and whether us not appreciating that is holding us back. And so I can say things happen the way they're supposed to, and it was a good experience. Was I licking the crumbs off the plate at those years? Like, for the most part, but the crumbs were gone like 2 or 3 years before I left. And so I wasn't thinking about that. And so now I've moved on to a different firm, different opportunities. It's been wonderful. But these are the conversations we should be having with ourselves. And we should appreciate what we bring to the table. Don't overestimate what you bring to the table. Don't think you're bringing the table and you have a fork, but you should know what you're bringing to the table.
That really right to the point answered what I was hoping to get. So thank you.
Those are scary things to do. And I mentioned talking to a mentor who was like, leave the front, like, what are you doing? But that just underscores you need a personal cabinet. You need a village. You need a tribe. I think you need 2. You need one within your profession, like in your firm and outside your firm. You need your sponsors. In your firm, you need mentors. You need people outside your firm. This is why bar associations are great. This is why I love the Women's Bar Association, among a lot of reasons. No one else in my family is a lawyer. I can't go to my mom and say, hey, is this normal law firm behavior? She's like, I don't know. But I can go to my WBA sisters and say, hey, ladies, does anyone have any experience with this? Should I be doing this? Should I not? Should I be concerned? Can I get these growth opportunities? So you need that village to help you understand what you're going through and whether it's normal or not. And some firms have screamers. I've never worked at a law firm with screamers, but some people maybe have only worked at law firms with screamers. And some people are screaming in the office, and maybe you need someone to say, That's not normal. People shouldn't be screaming at you. People shouldn't be talking to you this way because you might just think this is how it is. You need that resource. You also need people who are not lawyers, because sometimes you're in the weeds and you, I don't know, forgot a comma, and someone was like, oh my goodness, you forgot a comma, and you lose it. Like, oh my God, I forgot a comma. And a comma means nothing. We're not talking about the comma that, was the difference between a $5 victory and a 500. We're talking about in like silliness, like the pressure that we put on ourselves. And you need perspective. You need people to say, go outside. You need people to say, get a drink of water and take a nap and then come talk to me in 2 hours. And you need people to do things with you. I have a group of friends whom I love dearly, and they plan trips. And I will say, here's my money, and they will plan the trip. They will check me into the airplane, right? So I show up at the airport. Someone has texted me my QR code. Someone is there waving because I don't know what gate we're at. I once walked into Reagan Airport after they had renovated, and I thought I was in the wrong airport. I was so scared. I was like, where am I? What is going on here? And there was my friend waving like, girl, get over here. But you need those people who can pull you out of the mindset. I mean, and be it you're at a law firm, be it you're sitting coding, you're at a startup and you've been working for 7 days straight and you haven't taken a shower, and you need someone to say, go take a shower, go, what are you doing? Oh my goodness. But you need those people to pull you out of that environment sometimes and remind you that there's a real world out there that you have access to and you should take advantage of as well. So I think you can't make it through, especially legal careers, the careers in STEM, where it's so intense all the time. Sometimes it's intense and competitive all the time. Yes. You need people outside of those environments to help normalize your experiences.
That's really important to hear, because I'm breaking into the STEM field, and like you said, there's like a tremendous amount of pressure, super competitive, and it sounds like you have like a good support system to help you to get through those kinds of pressures. Is there any advice that you would give to young people like myself who are getting into those stressful, very competitive environments, who don't have, connections yet? How can we depend on ourselves and also put ourselves out there to really start to build that support system for those environments?
There's a big know thyself moment. So are you sensitive? Are you petty? Are you really laid back? So you kind of have to know yourself, because sometimes when you're really sensitive, everything is in a front, like, oh my goodness, they did this. They asked me to work this weekend and I'm never going to work at this place again. I mean, there are people who are really dramatic. Overtime is a thing, or working weekends is a thing, depending on the field that you're in. I worked at a small law firm, and life at a small law firm is very different from life in big law. And so making the jump from a 7 attorney firm to a 2,000 attorney firm, I knew there was a lifestyle shift, and I had to brace myself for that. Feelings and sensitivities aside, if I don't want to work on the weekends, I probably shouldn't be working in this environment. You have to know yourself and how, if you're sensitive or not, and you have to combat that so that you're not taking offense at everything that's happening, or that you're not overlooking everything that's happening that's a problem. You have to know the environment that you're working in. So I think that's a great starting point. Once you know yourself, you can kind of trust your gut. This feels like abuse. It might be abuse. You should talk to somebody outside of the office. You should look to leave, figure out somewhere else to go. So you should trust yourself and how you feel. Like, that's kind of first and foremost. And you'll fine tune trusting yourself as you move through your career. What are the associations that you can join? A lot of associations have young, insert the blank, groups, so we have young lawyers divisions, young lawyers committees. There's kind of like new people into the field. It's been a while since I did anything with NSBE, but what are the professional organizations that have maybe collegiate chapters, but grad chapters? And can you talk to the people in these fields to give yourself some connections? Then I think, who's within your organization that you like, as you can talk to. If there's no one in your organization that you like, maybe that's not the organization for you, where you can kind of bounce things off of them. Again, not from a family of lawyers, but I had a mentor that they assigned me when I first started practicing, and I could go talk to her and I could ask her the dumb questions. When I started doing triathlon, I had a mentor in triathlon, and I could ask like all of the dumb questions, like, so what am I supposed to wear to this thing? And where do I get that? And how many water bottles should I carry? And like stuff that's just basic, but you don't know because you've never done it. I'd like to start with organizations. Every field has an organization for people in the field. And then join those organizations, talk to those people. Sometimes like go back and talk to your professors. You have a professor that you're close to in undergrad or in grad school, and just, they have some experience. And if they don't, maybe they can introduce you to somebody who does. So I think sometimes we just just forget who we know. And you look up one day and it's like, oh, I know this person. And I'll tell you this funny little story. I'm at my current firm. I'd met one of the partners at my firm more than 10 years ago at a conference, and he was at a different firm, but he messaged me on LinkedIn after I met him. Either I didn't look at that, I didn't see it, or I saw it and ignored it. But it sat there. The next time he messaged me was when I was joining the firm. Like, I just announced on LinkedIn that I joined the firm, and he sent me a message, and I saw the message from a decade earlier, and I was like, I'm so embarrassed. Oh my, this communication, I'm not ghosting people. But I was so embarrassed, and he helped hire me. Things that are meant to be, you can whatever, however you think about stuff like that. But I'm like, I had this resource out there for like a decade, and I didn't realize it because I missed the message. I didn't know LinkedIn had message. I don't know what I was doing, at the time, but I missed this resource.
That's
so
crazy how it comes like
exactly
after 10 years.
So you want to think about what are your resources, and there are probably resources out there that you're like, oh yeah, I was in that organization in college and they do have a post-collegiate presence, and I did know this professor and this person did offer to help me. And I always say to lawyers and law students that I talk to, I'm like, look, if you find yourself 2 years from now and you're going through something and you're like, I need to talk to somebody, and you remember me and you're like, but I haven't talked to her, just send the email. I don't care. I'm not going to be like, oh, they haven't talked to me in 2 years. But I think a lot of people suffer in those moments because they're afraid to reach out to people because they didn't maintain those connections. Just reach out, apologize, and move forward. Okay.
If you could, in only 3 words, describe yourself, it's a little bit of a challenge, what 3 words would you choose?
I'm going to say resilient, hardworking as a hyphen in there, and open.
I remember you saying resiliency before, so yeah, that seems to be very significant. And I think I was just kind of going a little bit improving, but
okay.
Thanks so much for taking the time again to allow me to interview you. And it's been a pleasure to meet you. And thanks again, BPG, for the opportunity.
Thank you for having me.